Let me show you how to add a slit into a dress.
So the easiest way to add a slit is definitely seam ripping up the side seam and then hemming each of these pieces of fabric separately instead of together like this. But we're gonna do a slit up the front of the dress because my boyfriend's sister, Sophie, wants to wear this in Nashville. And so she wants to be able to see the cowboy boots really well. So first step was having Sophie mark where she wanted the slit to be, which is right here. And now I'm going to take, this is bias tape. You could really use any fabric. And I'm going to pin it on the point where Sophie wants it to end and then all the way straight down. This dress has a liner, and so I'm pinning this to both the outer fabric and the liner, making sure I'm not catching the back pieces. I cut the bias tape a little bit longer than the dress and I folded it up whenever I was sewing it so that we have the finished edge of the bias tape on the bottom. And then I sewed 2 lines up the length of it that are equidistant from the middle of the piece of bias. And at the top, I just left my needle in, turned the fabric, went over this way, and then back down so that we have this. And now I'm going to cut up the dress in between those 2 stitches, which will create our slit. I cut straight up the whole slit, but then at the end, I did a little triangle, getting as close to the stitching at the corners here as I could without going through it. This will help that look smooth at the top. You then take the extra piece of fabric that you added and fold it in halfway. This is where using bias tape comes in handy because it already had that indent. But then you fold it around to the back of the fabric. And you can see I'm pinning it with that around the back. And then we will sew that down. So from the outside, you shouldn't really be able to see the black that we added. And then from the inside, it's a nice finished hem with this side finished since we had folded it in halfway before folding it to the back here. For the top of the slit, you want to do the same thing where you just fold down the raw edge and then stitch it like that. And then we have this nice slit that looks clean on both the outside and the inside.